Picture this for a moment. You're walking through the dusty streets of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. The sun beats down relentlessly, voices blend together in the marketplace, and suddenly, you hear a desperate cry. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. It's the voice of a man born into darkness, who never saw a sunset, who never gazed upon his own mother's face. Today, we re-dive into one of the most powerful stories in the Gospels, an account that goes far beyond physical healing and reveals the infinite nature of God's mercy. This isn't just a story about restored sight. It's about hope where there was no hope. It's about faith that moves mountains. It's about a love that transcends all human limitations. Bartimaeus. The blind beggar of Jericho had no idea that his desperate cry would not only change his life, but echo through the centuries as a testimony to the transforming power of God's mercy. As Jesus and his disciples were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed them. The commotion was intense. Everyone wanted to be near the master who performed miracles, but among all those voices, there was one that stood out through the intensity of its desperation. Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, was there at the roadside, begging, as he did every day. To society of that time, he was invisible, disposable, a figure that people walked past without even a glance. But when Bartimaeus heard that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by, something ignited in his heart. It wasn't just curiosity. It was a flame of hope that perhaps even he couldn't explain. He began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me!" His voice cut through the air like an arrow aimed at heaven. And the more he shouted, the more people tried to silence him. The crowd rebuked him harshly, telling him to be quiet. After all, how dare a blind beggar interrupt the great master's passage? But Bartimaeus didn't quiet down. On the contrary, he shouted even louder. There was something inside him that prevented him from giving up. It was faith operating at its purest and most desperate level. He knew this might be his only chance. Jesus stopped. Among hundreds of people, he heard exactly the voice he needed to hear. The master didn't ignore the cry of the needy. He didn't keep walking as if nothing had happened. Jesus stopped and said, "Call him here." Imagine the instant transformation in that environment. The same people who were trying to silence Bartimaeus now ran to him saying, "Take heart. Get up! He's calling you!" Bartimaeus jumped up, threw aside his beggar's cloak, his only possession in the world, and stumbled toward Jesus. That cloak represented his identity as a beggar, his comfort zone in misery, his only source of income. But he abandoned it without hesitation, because he knew he was walking towards something infinitely greater. It was an act of absolute faith, a leap into the unknown. When Bartimaeus came near to Jesus, the master asked a question that might seem obvious but carries impressive theological depth. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus already knew Bartimaeus' need, but he wanted to hear it from his own lips. He wanted him to verbalize his faith, to publicly declare his expectation of a miracle. "Rabbi, I want to see," was Bartimaeus' simple and direct response. And then the impossible happened. Jesus said, "Go, your faith has healed you." Immediately, Bartimaeus received his sight. For the first time in his life, he saw sunlight. He saw Jesus' compassionate face. He saw the faces of people around him. He saw the colors of a world that until then existed only in his imagination. But what's most impactful is what he did next. He followed Jesus along the road, praising God. Bartimaeus didn't just receive his physical sight. He received a spiritual vision that transformed him from beggar to disciple. His healing wasn't just medical, it was vocational. He didn't return to his beggar's cloak, didn't go back to his former life. He chose to follow Jesus, becoming a living witness to divine mercy. His story became gospel. Good news that still resonates in our hearts today. God's mercy revealed in this story is infinite because it knows no social barriers, doesn't distinguish between important and insignificant, isn't limited to what is visible to human eyes. Jesus saw in Bartimaeus not a nuisance, but a beloved son. He didn't see a problem, but an opportunity to glorify the Father. Divine mercy always sees potential where others see only limitation. This story teaches us that no matter how desperate our situation, no matter how long we've been living in darkness, no matter how many people try to silence us when we cry out for help, God's mercy is greater than any circumstance. He hears our cry, stops when we call for help, and is always willing to transform our lives radically and permanently. Bartimaeus shows us that true faith isn't intimidated by criticism, doesn't stay silent in the face of rebuke, doesn't give up in the face of obstacles. True faith shouts louder when they try to silence it, persists when others quit, and leaps toward the impossible when it hears Jesus' voice calling. His story is an invitation for each of us to throw off the cloak of conformity and walk toward the miracle God has prepared. Like Bartimaeus, we all have our limitations, our blind spots, our moments of desperation. But this story's message transcends the centuries. God's mercy has no limits. It reaches the beggar and the king, the blind and the seeing, the forgotten and the remembered. It transforms beggars into disciples, despair into hope, darkness into glorious light. Bartimaeus' healing wasn't just an isolated miracle 2,000 years ago. It's a living promise that God continues to hear our cries, stops before our needs, and works impossible transformations in our lives. His mercy is new every morning, infinite in its reach, and available to all who, like have the courage to cry out, "Jesus, have mercy on me." If this story touched your heart as it touched mine, leave a comment sharing how God's mercy has manifested in your life. Subscribe to the channel for more reflections that can transform your spiritual journey. And do not forget to like this video so more people can know the infinite power of divine mercy. May the light of Jesus illuminate your path, just as it illuminated Bartimaeus' eyes. Until the next video, may God bless you abundantly.